Hi, Rob Brown here with you on this, what's a Wednesday morning, October 16th. Hat Day, folks. It is National Hat Day. Brendan, you got that
It is
hat
National Hat Day.
Hey, it's Badass Hat Day. Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, our sponsor, got that hat for you. Love it. Love those people. Hey,
Love
lot
them.
to cover today.
Love it.
Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports on Georgia. Bats in the leadoff position. Jake Wimberly at 15 after down in Jackson, Mississippi, covering all things in the Magnolia State. Dudley Dawson, hogville.net. Vince Ferrara up on the hill in Knoxville. And in between, we'll cover all 16 teams in the SEC. That's what we do every day. Smash the subscribe button, bottom right-hand corner. Allow notifications on your Android and iPhone. And tell your friends, families, neighbors, everybody about the show. We're here to serve.
And leave a comment for Rob.
Boom. Yeah.
Leave a comment. Talk about my hat. Talk some smack.
Talk about how cool that hat is. Yeah.
That's right. You got to leave a comment. Oh, we are light today. You got to leave a comment, and you've got to like, and you've got to subscribe. It's free. We're not going to spam you. It's cool, man.
We're going to be. It's exactly
Click
what
on the QR code, man, right there. You got a new iPhone. Make it happen.
Yeah. Click it. Let's go.
Click it.
All right. Let's get going, man. With Brendan, got a stacked show today. Lot to cover. Love our guests and Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports on Georgia. Last weekend, I mean, this is the new SEC. Is there a dominant team? Hell, I don't know. But I picked in the weekly pick thing in the Touchdown Club of Memphis Monday night, I took Georgia to beat Texas. I feel it because nobody thinks it's going to happen and everybody can't be right at the same time. But I just see Georgia going out there saying, hey, we are still the big dog. We've won 2 of the last 3 national championships. So take that, Texas.
We'll see. You've got more faith than I do, Rob. A lot of concerns with this Georgia secondary. I mean, that's kind of where it boils down to me. I mean, especially considering it's going to be on the road. They did not play well against Mississippi State, gave up nearly 200 passing yards in the second half. I don't know if it was a lack of focus. I don't know if they got comfortable. They were up 34-10, and maybe it was, okay, we got this in the bag, and just wasn't the case. But that's sort of the area when I look at this game that Georgia's going to have its best game of the year. I mean, go look back at that loss at Alabama. Secondary just could not stop Ryan Williams, which I know is easier said than done. But the secondary is going to be tested by Quinn Ewers and a really deep receiver room. They're going to have to bring their A game to have a chance.
The pass rush is going to be critical. Let's talk about Georgia's front 7 and the depth. Kirby's talking about it like every other coach is. It's hard in the era of the portal, guys coming and going to build depth.
Yeah, and the problem for Georgia this year, especially on the defensive line, is they have been banged up pretty much from the jump. Warren Brinson he was hurt in fall camp. He gets hurt in like the first quarter of the Clemson game. He's been back, but he missed time. Michael Williams is still working his way back. He got hurt in the Clemson game. Jordan Hall hasn't played at all, trying to come back from injuries to both of his legs. They've had a lot of guys having to rotate in. They have not been healthy on that front. And again, that's another piece of it. It's kind of funny to me. It feels like a role reversal when you talk about Georgia this year. Most years we go into the year and say, well, if the offense can be competent, maybe they'll be able to win a national title because we know this defense is going to be good. There's more questions than ever about this defense. And to talk about the defensive front, they have not had a sack in 2 of the last 3 games. And that Alabama game, I thought that was a huge part of the problem, was they couldn't get Jalen Milroe on the ground. And it was a very drastic change from December when they played in the SEC title game. They sacked Jalen 4 times. I thought that was a big reason Georgia was in that game. So got to sack Quinn Ewers. It's always kind of simple when we break these games down. But if you give him a lot of time, that was part of the problem with Michael Van Buren, Mississippi State's quarterback. He had all kinds of time to navigate. Once he got comfortable and started making completions, he started the third quarter with 9 consecutive completions. You usually don't see that on a Georgia defense, but that's sort of the situation right now.
Hey, Blind Squirrel Sports, he's a big Georgia fan, watches the show every day. Blind Squirrel, make sure you are subscribing and following Jordan Hill. This guy works his tail off putting out content on X, so make sure you do it. Jordan, you're talking about the defensive linemen. That's everything. And so Texas's offensive line, Georgia's defensive line, where do you see a weakness in the burnt orange wall?
I mean, it's hard to find one, and I'll give
Yeah.
Kirby Smart sort of the benefit of the doubt. He was talking up Texas and kind of, doing the cliche, I can't find a weakness. I think Kirby said he thought this was the most complete team that Georgia has played this year and maybe in multiple years. And, I think for me, when you look at Georgia, it kind of goes back to the conversation we were just having. Can that defensive line get to Quinn Ewers? And it's going to be interesting. I thought Kirby gave some good insight talking about Texas and how well they've transitioned, at least to the point, to being SEC. And he said, you look at their line of scrimmage and they're built like an SEC team. He said that when you look at how their record has improved under Steve Sarkisian, he said it's not a coincidence that it's because they've made the line better each and every year, that was a big piece of the puzzle. So to me, I think the Georgia offensive line is up for it. I do want to see if they're able to run block a little better. Georgia's run game has not been as strong as it's been in years past. But to me, when you talk about the line of scrimmage, it's more for me about the Georgia defensive line. Can they get in there? Can they stop a running game that I think Texas deserves a lot of credit? I think people have kind of forgotten they lost 2 running backs during preseason practice.
Correct.
And, it was kind of a situation where I'm going, okay, can Texas hang now that they've lost 2 running backs? They've run the ball pretty well, especially given those circumstances.
I think I'm at the point with the running back situation in the SEC in college football. And hi, Jordan, by the way, welcome, welcome to the insanity. I hope you've been faring all right about the weather and stuff up there. I think that the offensive and defensive line is like the same old story, but it is always the story, right? And running backs, I mean, give these guys their due, but I don't think these and defensive linemen, especially in the SEC, get enough credit, because you look at when teams start to break down. You look at like what's happening in Mississippi State. When you talk about Georgia, Florida, it's always the same conversation, isn't it, Jordan? It's what's happening to offensive and defensive linemen, because you can't win in the SEC without that.
Yeah.
No, for sure. And I think you look at even the way Georgia has built up, its program to the spot that it's in. A lot of it was how they built on the lines of scrimmage. I mean, when they had Sam Pittman as the offensive line coach, the way they really invested in defensive linemen like Trayvon Walker and Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. I mean, that was so key in some of those big time Georgia teams. And I think it's always a very good starting point when you look at a matchup where you can see it going either way. How are they built on the line of scrimmage? I think Georgia's in decent shape. Again, watching that defensive line, really interested to see how much Michael Williams is going to play. He's going to be an X factor because he has been back in recent weeks, but he's not been playing that much. Probably 10, 15 snaps in some of these games. They're going to need to let him loose, and he's got to get after Quinn Ewers. It's going to be fascinating. I think it's going to be an exciting game, but watching the line of scrimmage for both sides of the ball, I think it's going to be really fun to watch.
Well, you're right, too. I mean, if Georgia gets a good pass rush, that makes the secondary more effective. Without a pass rush, a struggling secondary spirals out of control.
Absolutely. I mean, you can all, and I think back to the Ohio State game in the Peach Bowl a couple of years ago. A lot of people got after the Georgia secondary for how they played in that game, but I put it more on the front. You can only keep up with those guys for so long. You're trying to chase Marvin Harrison Jr. down. Even the best DB is only going to be able to keep up with him for so long. So, I mean, I think it kind of starts and ends with this defensive front. And, talk to Nazir Stackhouse, who's a nose tackle, who has probably been the MVP of the defensive line to this point. I mean, he's up there in the middle. His numbers aren't crazy, but he's opening up holes for everybody else. He's kind of had a rotating cast of characters around him because of guys being banged up. And, I think Kirby kind of alluded to it last night, basically saying he didn't know where Georgia would be right now if it wasn't for Nas Stackhouse. He's done a really good job, but he can't do it alone. They need other guys to step up, and I'll be watching that group very closely on Saturday.
Legendary Georgia nose guard. I remember the guy in the middle, 1980 national championship team, Eddie Meat Cleaver Weaver. People would remember that guy. All right, question, will Jordan Hall be able to play versus Texas?
I would be surprised. He's still been working his way back. He had injuries to both of his legs. He injured one leg, was working his way back, and then aggravated the same injury in the other leg.
Yeah.
So I would be surprised if we see him. My guess is he makes his debut for the season against Florida, and part of that is because they have another bye week after the Texas game. So I would be surprised. I can't say for a fact he's out, but my guess is we don't see him until Florida.
Well, Brendan was nailed it about the offensive and defensive lines. And then it's the depth. You'd like to be able to rotate guys on there. Georgia's roster, looking at the blue chip index, it's like Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia's at 80% 4 and 5 stars. Who really hasn't stepped up that it's like now or never? If a dog will bite, he'll do it when he's a pup. In your opinion on this Georgia squad?
Well, I kind of want to see them build on what they did with the tight ends on Saturday against Mississippi State. There just hasn't been that guy, and nobody's going to replace Brock Bowers. He's the best tight end, maybe the best tight end in college football history, certainly.
Isn't he fun to watch in the NFL?
He's crazy. Looks like a video game. But they haven't had that guy really step up as a pass catcher. And we saw a little bit more of that on Saturday. Lawson Lucky caught a touchdown. He's definitely their best pass catcher among the tight ends. But Oscar Delp, who's the older of the tight ends, he caught some passes. He sort of struggled with pass catching this year. I think he's more effective as a blocker. And then Ben Urasic, a guy they brought in from Stanford, has kind of had a baptism by fire, not had a great start to the year, but definitely had his best game as a Bulldog against Mississippi State. Blocked better, had at least one big catch, and was targeted on another. So I want to see the tight ends get more involved. If you can get those guys to become true weapons, and Lawson Lucky's definitely the most productive and the most explosive of these tight ends, I think it adds a whole new element to the offense, and it's going to keep the Texas defense on their toes.
Looking around the SEC this year, look at Georgia's schedule, and I'm looking at it like you are. At Texas, off. Florida in Jacksonville, at Ole Miss, at home against Tennessee, at home against UMass, and at home against Georgia Tech. Georgia's got that one loss, but damn, I don't think they hated losing, but I don't think anybody walked out of there with their head hanging down. It was like, wow. We're down 28-0, and we still came that close to winning. That's why I think they're going to beat Texas Saturday. I could be wrong, but there's a mindset that I love.
Well, I think it kind of boils down to what, kind of going back to that Alabama game, it's how Georgia starts, because I don't think on either side of the ball it could have gone any worse for Georgia in like the first quarter and a half against Alabama. That they Jalen Milroe marched right down the field. Georgia threw a bomb that Arian Smith should have caught, and it falls right through his hands. And then can't stop Milroe again. Turnover. You have to start fast, and they're used to playing these games on the road, and they're used to these big environments. But it's one thing when you come out and you kind of land that first punch, and you go, okay, we're ready. But when you get hit 2 or 3 times, you get that crowd into it. It can throw you off, and they talked about that. We talked to Trevor Etienne on Monday, and he talked about that we got to just execute the little things. He said, he didn't really feel like the Alabama, that start, he said that he didn't really think it was about anxiety. It was just about little mistakes here and there that wound up, making a big difference. And really interested to see how they show up in this game, especially, if Georgia were to lose this Texas game, I still don't think they're out of the playoff race, but you have no margin for error going forward. So I think that they understand the ramifications and the stakes of this game. And again, how they start this game, especially being able to compare that to Alabama, it's going to be fascinating.
Yeah. Eric Zier's still on the Georgia Network?
Yes, he is.
Okay. All right. Because I know Lauren Smith does about a 2.5-day show pregame. It's incredible. And when you watch Lauren, people are lined up to get his autograph and take pictures with him. That's one of the best pregame shows in college football, man. Jordan, I know you got a big day ahead of you. Let people know how they can follow you, and also on X, because you're a nonstop media source for Georgia people, and you always bring a a feeling of excitement every time you're on the show, and we really appreciate it. I know the last few weeks has been crazy. Last week, no internet, no phone, no power, the hurricane, the dog ate my homework, but thank you so much. We love having you on this show.
I appreciate that. But dogs247.com, I would tell any Georgia folks listening, 50% off sale right now for this big game. So I'd encourage people to sign up there. On Twitter at Jordan Davis Hill, on Twitter at dogs247. So looking forward to flying out to Texas on Friday, looking to get some good barbecue, and hopefully we're going to be treated to a fun game on Saturday night.
Go to Cisco's for an incredible Tex-Mex breakfast. Ken Capps, Football Writers Association of America, is on the show every week. Cisco's is and Franklin's Barbecue. If you have a tent and you want to spend the night to get in, but have fun, be careful, okay?
Take your tent.
All right, appreciate you guys.
All right,
Jordan.
Hey, Jake Wimberly going to join us here in just a second. 105.9 ESPN, the afternoon drive down in Jackson, Mississippi. Man, Jake, it's an awesome time of the year. I'm cold up here in the studio right now. I've got a down jacket vest from Hewlett and Dunn from the duck camp, but the conversation is so hot, man. It is SEC football, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. I want to ask you first, what were your takeaways from Mississippi State on the road at Georgia the other day? I like Mitch Davis covers Mississippi State also on this show. I like Lebby, what he does offensively. He's just got to get more players. Am I correct? Not a single player that started for Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl last November is still on the team this year. So they've gone through a lot, but your takeaway on that first.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me in this morning. You're absolutely correct. Not a player that played on that Egg Bowl team I don't think is on that roster. There was only 4 starters from that team last year that was back this year. This is a completely new team. I thought they played admirably against Georgia. You look at Michael Van Buren, a freshman quarterback. He's had some good moments. He's had some freshman moments. So, you go on the road back-to-back weeks with a bye weekend sandwich in between Texas and Georgia, and I thought they did about all they could do. I mean, this is a team that, look, this team needs a lot of work. They need recruiting. They need talent. They need stability. You've gone through 5 coaches over a number of years, 3 athletic directors over a number of years, and it's just going to take some time, and I know people don't want to hear that, but this group needs stability. And, we'll see, if they can continue to play as, they played extremely hard. You've got to credit Jeff Lebby and their staff for keeping them engaged. We'll see what they do against Texas A&M this weekend. They're a double-digit underdog at home. They'll be honoring the 2014 Mississippi State team with Dak Prescott and Dan Mullen and those guys this weekend. Maybe that gives them a little bump, a little juice this weekend, and we'll see what happens Saturday afternoon.
I still lay claim to the greatest day in college football history in the state of Mississippi was Saturday, October 4th, 2014. 6 of us had just killed 78 dove over in Lambert at the farm, went over to Abe's Barbecue in Clarksdale and getting a Big Abe barbecue sandwich. I love that place. And down in the Delta, and Mississippi State is curb stomping. Vince McMahon would have been selling tickets. A&M's 4th-ranked team. Later that day, unbeknownst to me, my middle son had snuck down with friends to Oxford for that win over Ole Miss. And then, you can't get any better than that. For 5 weeks, Mississippi State was number 1, and that's a hell of a trivia question. Who was the first team ever to be ranked number 1 in the CFP poll? So that's a big deal. And Jackie Sherrill's coming in 2 weeks to the Touchdown Club in Memphis. I love hearing what that guy has to say. Let's talk about Ole Miss. Living down in Jackson, the hatred between LSU and Ole Miss. That game, that hurts, but now Ole Miss is mad because they lost on the road against the top 10 LSU team. Doesn't that say a lot about where that program is?
Oh, absolutely. And look, it's been it's been bumpy. That's the keep it mildly here for the last few days here in Central Mississippi for Ole Miss fans, and rightfully so. You put all this time and effort into a team, and then of course you have the loss to Kentucky, a kick that sells left, never really had a shot, could have pushed that thing to overtime, probably should have won, and then you trail for the entirety of the LSU game until the last play of the game. So, there's a lot of angst, there's a lot of aggravation, and I get it, but that's where we are in this day and age of college football. Just look this past weekend. Penn State has to go on the road and survive a 3-point victory against USC on the road. Yep. Oregon, a 1-point victory, against Ohio State. there's been a countless number of games that have gone to overtime around the country, 1-point losses, 2-point losses. So the competition is razor thin. Ole Miss still mathematically is in this thing. We'll see what happens down the road. They've got to take care of business, but no doubt about it. I mean, a big ball game always between LSU and Ole Miss, and it served to be the same thing this past weekend.
You know what we've done without realizing it, and I kind of saw this coming, by bringing Cal and Stanford to the ACC and Oregon, Washington, Southern Cal, UCLA to the Big Ten and all this. We are paying more attention, more closely to college football all over the country in places in the past we really kind of half-assed looked at. I think it's the greatest damn thing I've seen in college football in a long time. It is so fun. And we had the general manager for Ole Miss, Billy Glaske, was speaking at the Touchdown Club in Memphis Monday. Great club to join, people. You're going to learn a lot. But, man, he'd been at Texas the previous 3 years. The movement in the aisles, as Jack Crystal would say, there's movement in the aisles here in Scottsfield and Starkville, Mississippi. How hard is it to build a culture when you're bringing in 25 or 30 new guys a year like Ole Miss did?
I think it's extremely tough, and it doesn't mean that Ole Miss has failed in this experiment. Everybody's, dabbling in this experiment to some degree, but I think it's extremely tough to build a culture. I mean, you look at Florida State 2 years ago, Mike Norvell went all in. It paid off. 13-0. Obviously, Jordan Travis goes down with the injury, and the rest of that was a sad story. This year, it has not paid off. So, I think you have to mathematically and theoretically get to where Oregon and Texas and maybe even, some of these other teams are at, in that you have a really good base of high school. I mean, you go to look at Oregon's roster, you look at Texas's roster, and look, Rob, I thought they were the two best teams coming into the season. I still think they're the two best teams coming into the season, or halfway point of the season. Really good high school football-based recruiting. Then they add where they need to as far as the transfer portal. Not everybody has that luxury, but I think that's where you have to try to get to. You still can't forget about your high school recruiting.
Hey, Matt Dean, who's on the show every Thursday, his son Tyler's in his third year on the staff at Oregon with Dan Lanning. You fly Memphis to DFW nonstop to Eugene, Oregon. They put that flight in Eugene to go to Texas. They're not stupid. They're very, very smart. But you had Oregon and Texas as your 1 and 2 in the preseason. Give us an update on your Matrix preseason top 10, top 15.
Yeah, top 10, top 15. If we're coming through that, let me just go over here and look real quick. I will tell you.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, I got it right here. I have it right here. I put this out weekly. What I call my playoff projector poll. I have Oregon as the number 1 team in the country after beating Ohio State. And this is a lot of different, math equations that goes into this, from offensive and defensive scoring efficiency to top 25 wins. Also, kind of a combination of the polls together. It's kind of an old BCS type formula, but Oregon number 1, Texas 2, Ohio State 3, and Penn State 4. I've got Georgia at number 5. Alabama checks in at 6, Clemson 7, Miami 8, Iowa State 9, and Texas A&M has slipped in at 10, followed by Notre Dame, BYU, LSU, Tennessee, and then Ole Miss at 15. So, littered with still a lot of SEC flavor, but man, the SEC is well on its way to cannibalizing itself. I mean, you look at this weekend. Yeah, if Georgia goes over to Austin and beats Texas, then that really flips the conference upside down. Conversely, if Georgia loses, they now have 2 losses on the season. And we were talking about this yesterday. There is a scenario, believe it or not, where Georgia and Alabama could absolutely miss the playoff this year, which I don't think anybody would have thought before the season started.
Well, I'm not surprised. Here's a question from Gil Lawson. What impact will the increase in scholarships have starting next year?
It's yet to be determined. You got to throw in not just scholarships. You have to throw in NIL money, and you have to throw in a lot of other stuff. So, I think it will have some sort of an impact. At face value, you would think, okay, well, the strong is just going to get stronger, right? I mean, you're talking, but that's not the case as NIL sits today, because kids want to get paid and kids want to go play. And I think that's one of the things you're seeing: lack of depth in certain places at Georgia, lack of depth at certain places at Alabama, because of the transfer portal and kids getting out of there and going to play elsewhere. Which I think is why you're seeing the Big Ten and the SEC have these meetings that they just had down in Nashville. In Nashville. And they talk about the college football playoff and then other things as well, But if you listen to them carefully, they talk about third-party people helping them, not private equity. They've said they don't want private equity. All that to say is this thing is ever changing, and we don't know where it's going to land. But I do think the increase in scholarships will affect this to some degree.
Yeah, and when you think about, and I said this last night on the Buddy Martin show, which is on this channel Monday through Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Check it out. It's an awesome show. That managing a football program is a lot like a hedge fund manager, a money manager that manages a growth and income fund or whatever. You're buying and selling. You got to think about tax consequences, ordinary, dividends. You got to think about, ordinary taxes, capital gains taxes. But you shouldn't sell something unless you got something better to buy. And again, you can go to cash, but you can't stay in cash long, especially when interest rates are real low. You're going broke safely. So I look at this crap. Mississippi State is unique because they had to make a move with Zach Arnett. But you can't be changing coaches every 2 or 3 years. Looking at the big picture of college football across the country, can you remember where every weekend it's like going to the all-you-can-eat country buffet for $9.95 where they got benches because everybody's so big they can't sit in chairs? It's incredible. And by the way, I am so apologetic. I made a mistake on your show a couple of weeks ago. I had Missouri to beat A&M because I didn't know Connor Wegman was going to play. I am so ashamed because I would have picked A&M all the way with that guy coming. So I take a lot of pride in my picks. Paper,
we can't get them all right. We can't get them all right, Rob. You know that.
Right. Yeah.
We can't get. Who would have thought Vanderbilt would have beaten Alabama and Kentucky back-to-back weeks? I don't know that anybody had that in their parlay picks.
No, no way. Hey, look, Vanderbilt story. I'm asking everybody this. Vandy wins 8 games or 9 games. Diego Pavia's only got like 10 touchdown passes on the year, but he is Johnny Sandlot. This guy is I don't know what it is about him, but who would not want to play with this guy? And Jerry Kill, what he's been through in his personal health life, still has 174 victories. What he's brought to Vanderbilt and Telly Savalas, Clark Lee, this is an incredible story. And along with Army and Navy being ranked for the first time since Dwight Eisenhower was in the White House.
You've got so many stories like this. Vanderbilt, obviously, is at the top of this chain, I think, because they're in the Southeastern Conference and they beat Bama for the first time in 40 years. And the entire country, started flooding to those channels when they saw that, to see that in real time. But you're correct. I mean, who wouldn't want to play with Pavia? I mean, he looks to be a heck of a quarterback as far as a leader. He's not going to wow you with his stats, but he wows you, I think, with his moxie and his ability. But you just referenced, you look at Vanderbilt, you look at what's going on at Army and Navy. Look, Indiana's undefeated. They have a legitimate shot at least being in the playoff picture this year.
Yeah.
BYU and Iowa State are both undefeated in the Big 12 this year. SMU is right there in the thick of things in the ACC. So it is a crazy college football world that we're living in. I don't know that any of the teams that I just referenced would have a chance to win the national title, but nonetheless, it's still wonderful stories that we get a chance to cover every day.
Well, incredible bit of trivia here. There are only 2 teams in college football this year that are ranked in the top 10 in defense and offense. Do you know who those teams? I bet you know who they are because you're a civil engineer.
In the top 10 in what? Say that again.
In offense and defensive statistics.
I would have to say maybe Army and Navy.
Army and Texas.
Army and Texas.
Yeah. And the Army Navy game, how big is this? How big is this going to be? That game could be for a spot in the college football playoff. And the world we live in, I told Harold Grader with the Touchdown Club in Memphis Monday night, I said, here's Memphis. If they only win 10 games this year and go 10-2, they're going to be mad as hell. This is everywhere you look, there's a good game. It's like when cable first came out, before you figured out how much of that stuff is just crap. But this is just an incredible, every time you turn on the TV, if you don't have YouTube and you don't stream, because you get to see all those things up on the menu, you're missing the boat, man. I mean, you really are. And we went up to Fayetteville, for the Tennessee game and saw Dudley up there and sat out on the front porch, man. Felt like I was in Mayberry. Fayetteville Oh my God. I've got this. I love this. I love that. I love that area. But wow, Jake, I know you got a big day ahead of you. Let people know how they can follow you and keep up with you with all the stuff that's going on, because it is happening so fast. It's like watching a meteor shower every Saturday. And then during the week, I watched South Alabama and Troy last night. If they're keeping score, I'm watching.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, and look, two scenarios before I go, and I'll tell you how you can get me is you referenced that Army-Navy game. They mathematically, if things go well, they could play at the end of the year for the chance to possibly get in the playoff, then turn around and play the Army-Navy game after that, because it's after the conference championship weekend. And the team that lost could actually beat the team that's headed to the playoff. Also, if Texas beats Georgia this weekend and Texas A&M beats Mississippi State, I talked to Olin Buchanan yesterday, and 2 days ago, and I talked to a gentleman that covers Texas in the state of Texas. They are talking about it is really fixing to hit the gas. Texas A&M could play possibly for the SEC title game a week after Texas and Texas A&M play down in College Station. So it is crazy where we possibly could be headed. I don't think anybody knows. But, hey, find me on X at Jake Gwim. And, of course, check out the show today, 3 to 6, thezone1059.com. Dudley, how are you, sir, by the way?
I'm doing good, my friend. How are you?
Doing well.
Yeah, Jake, no, I just figured – no, I was going to say something to you. And Dudley and I think would agree. We've always had that fear. Heart doctors will be on 24/7 alert if that happens. I mean, the nervous hospital, a week after, 2 weeks in a row. I mean, Dudley, what do you think? Could they handle it? Texas A&M 2 weeks in a row? Wow.
I think that that would be wonderful chaos, and you know how I root for chaos. I hate planned, boring stuff, so chaos sounds fine.
Jake.
And, I'm sure one team will win one week and get Earth. And, fun. I like that.
Yeah, I think it would be. I mean, Jake, just Olin Buchanan, TexAgs.com. He really is, and because he was in Austin for 12 years, he knows both programs, and he's from White Oak, Texas, a town of, as he says, 2,500 people. And the football stadium seats 5,000. That tells you they got their priorities right in the state of Texas.
Absolutely. All right.
Jake, thank you, man. Let's do it again next week, and I'll come on anytime, and I'm going to get my picks better next time.
You got it, Rob. We'll do it. See you.
All right. Appreciate it. Dudley, holy cow. You've got you've got the triad. Sam Pittman, head coach, but he's letting his coordinators, Bobby Petrino and Travis Williams, do their thing. Not many coaches are that comfortable in their own skin to say, hey, man, you do your thing. I'm the head coach, but I trust you. Man, when someone says that to you at work as a young writer, if someone had said to you, and they did, obviously, Dudley, you go do your thing. I believe in you. Boy, when someone gives you that kind of a validation, a boost, a vote of confidence, you grow up real fast, and I think that's what's happening.
Yeah, I'm right. Weisner and Clay Henry and others took an interest in me and brought me along the way. I certainly was nowhere as good as I was going to be there early on, and was allowed to grow. And certainly, I think that's what's happened with Travis Williams for sure. I mean, the dude's going to be a head coach somewhere soon. He's got the it factor. His players respect him, and he knows what he's doing out there. I think we talked last week about how he sat around and found some tendencies that Tennessee had that he was able to implement into the game plan, and that's one of the big reasons why they won the ball game. And then the other coordinator, obviously, Bobby Petrino, is I write something from the other coach every week about what a genius he is and how hard it is to prepare for one of his offenses. And so he's got a good combination there. And you talked about Coach Pittman. I mean, he knew what situation he was in, and he's turned it over, and it's worked out well for them. He's doing the things he needs to do as head coach, and it's really worked out to this point. Obviously, 4-2. You'll make adjustments as you go along to have success, and I think that's what he's done.
Sam Pittman is the John Goodman of college football coaches. You think about that. I mean, he's just that big guy that everybody likes, and they want to see him succeed.
The Big Lebowski, John Goodman, or the
Roseanne, or Raising Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
HI, you got a name for him? So far, we're just calling him Junior. That's one of Raising Arizona, the Cohen brothers, perhaps.
Yes.
Two Texas grads, Fargo, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's as good as it gets. All right, Dudley, talk about this matchup with LSU coming up. Vince Ferrara is going to join us in a minute from Knoxville. It's a 1-point line, and I heard yesterday on Chuck Oliver's show, Chuck had an LSU guy on there and said, you don't know which Arkansas team's going to show up. Well, the defense is going to show up, and here it is. 4-2, the Hogs mattered in a bunch of wet hens that they let the Oklahoma State game get away. And they, the Texas A&M, just no more games at Jerry World, just home and home. And that starts next year. Your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say that, they're looking back now on that Oklahoma State game, even with more angst, because other people have been able to beat Oklahoma State, and they were not as good as they thought going into the season. Obviously, their running back, has been phenomenal, but it's just that's a win they should have gotten. And you had the lead on Texas A&M. So, they look back and think, look where we could have been. But here's the situation. You can focus on that. As a coach, you've got to focus on if you don't beat LSU this weekend at home, then you're sort of right back where you were. Yes, the win over Tennessee was great, and they stormed the field and all that. But if you're going to make a dent in the narrative, continue to make a dent in the narrative of, they might be a new coach, they can't win the one-score games, all that. LSU's won a bunch of one-score games. The interesting thing is, since they've had this golden boot, the 10,000-pound whatever it is trophy.
We don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's shaped like Arkansas and Louisiana. You've had a situation where LSU's won 19 of those 28 games since they've had that trophy. LSU's won the last 4. All 4 of them have been by 3 points or less. Arkansas plays them well. They just hadn't beat them lately. So Brian Kelly in his press conferences this week has been talking about how they've got to be ready, and they can't just go nuts and have spent too much emotion getting that big win over Ole Miss. So we'll see how both of these teams come in here.
I mean, the Arkansas's schedule in this second 6-game second half is amazing. It's going to be. I mean, Fayetteville is going to be one of the hottest places to be, and if they keep winning, it's going to be more fun.
Hey, Rob, talk for just a second. I'm going to slide out of I've got a dog over here scratching. I'm going to let him out.
Get the dog. Get the dog. Don't kick the dog, Dudley. Then he disappears into the green screen.
He disappeared into
like
Donald.
I'm back. I let him out. I let him out gate A here at the stadium, and now he's going.
You're cleared for takeoff on runway 20 right.
Brendan, I love it. Dudley lives in Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium.
Luxury suite. Yeah, luxury suite.
Yeah.
Now,
I've been there. I've been there.
Brendan was asking me this. Brendan wanted to know this. How much are the naming rights? Because I think this is the last year of the contract with Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Any potential suitors? Anybody? People, chicken.
Guarded.
Who?
They've been very guarded and quiet about that. I think the price went up 2 Saturday nights ago.
Yeah.
A little bit. Might go up a little bit more if LSU. They're smart by trying to get some wins under their belt before they, finalize that deal.
Well, no, but they don't. Don't you love and hate John Daly all at the same time? Like, you don't want it to be like the Daily Bowl or something like that.
Hey,
John, thanks for your check, but could you just stand over there?
Daly's a friend from way back. I remember sitting around drinking a beer with him one time.
I know him too. Yeah.
Watching a report about how he hadn't been drinking for 10 years or whatever it was.
I remember. There are some classic rehab stories of like when he played after in the Ryder Cup or something like that. And he got up there and he's making speeches and stuff. Oh, poor guy. I love his podcast.
Some beer, cigarettes, and Hooters.
Hey,
I was there when I was caddying at Castle Pines when he was out there after he won the PGA. And then he goes out there and he's like hitting it 500 yards, smoking cigarettes, drinking beer.
He's every man. Him and Tiger Woods drew more people to watch golf than about anybody, in the last 10, 15 years, about the last 20 years. All right, getting back here with this Arkansas matchup with LSU. Garrett Nussmeier was like, and I heard it's right. No, he's not going to remember. Look, man, y'all remember when I was 23 of 52 against Ole Miss, but they'll remember his last two passes were both for touchdowns. Break it down, weaknesses, strengths of LSU, and where you see a path to victory for the touchdown Arkansas, as Paul Eels would say.
Well, you could be like Jared Goff and go 18 of 18 and win a game as he did 2 weeks ago for Detroit. And just be perfect, or you can come up with clutch plays, and that's what Nussmeier obviously did during that game. If you broke it down from pass one until the last two, you'd say, man, that guy was struggling. They're lucky to win. But you make clutch plays in clutch situations. Reggie Jackson wasn't called Mr. October because he singled. You've had a bunch of other people in sports who just make plays, who just calm things down, and it happens for them. That'll be the same situation here on Saturday night. I'm sure that Travis Williams' defense is going to get after him. I'm sure that LSU, which is obviously has a plethora again of wide receivers that make plays, I think they're going to be in a situation where is Taylon Green going to be fully healthy, or at least as good as he can be to this point and make plays, or is it going to be Garrett Nussmeier? Usually, the quarterback at the end of ball games figures out things and it happens, and one way or the other.
All right, give me a grade on Taylon Green through the first 6 games: A, B, C, D, or F. As one teacher told me one time, Brown, there's nothing lower than an F, so I'll give you an F minus.
Well, let's start with the fact they're 4-2. They would not be 4-2 without him. I think that's pretty obvious. Let's also go to the point that he has had a tendency at times to throw it to the other team, and that certainly was a factor in the Oklahoma State game. Certainly was a factor in the Texas A&M game. I don't think you can give him an A. I don't think you can give him. I don't think you want to go as far as a D. How about B minus? B minus. That's what I'm going to go with.
I'll take a B minus in school.
Yeah, a few more successful passes, and
you can erase that minus. It's easy.
You
just kind of scribble it.
Well, once he
white out.
Now, that being said, I do give him some allowances for the dude's just been running. He's run for more yards than a quarterback has here at Arkansas in a long time, but just some of them have been sideways, and some of them have been backwards, a lot of them have been forward. And, they have to protect him this weekend. And obviously they're going up, against a school that normally has great defensive players.
How good is Malachi if he has to come back in? He played a quarter and a half against Tennessee and got her done. It was not bad.
I think he's going to be a really, really good quarterback. I'm not sure whether he's going to be the guy that we saw on his first drive against Tennessee, or the one we saw on the second drive. I think that he's got growth, just like Taylor has growth to give. Now, I do think he has all the essentials. I think he has a good mind in being able to recognize stuff pre-snap. I think that's one of his strengths. He certainly was a very good high school player. It's too early, I think, for me to say he's going to be a great quarterback. I will say he has the potential to be a very, very good one. And certainly, again, quarterbacks coming here this year and learn under Bobby Petrino. That's a good deal for them. That works for them. He's going to be a better quarterback, but because of what he gets this year than what he got last year.
You know what a cool story for you to be. You're a hell of a writer, and you said Orville Henry influenced you.
Orville Henry's son, Clay.
Yeah, Clay. Yeah.
Well, he was my boss for 20-something years, and really, brought me into trying to search for the right word. He taught me a lot of things to do right, and some things that, hey, Dudley, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. Well, as you don't traffic in rumors, and that was a cool conversation sitting on the front porch with.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed
McClellan.
Maury
Guest. It really was. Just and Dr. Robinson, the chancellor at Arkansas, came back over Sunday. It was so cool to give out those Sigma Nu donors gave 25 scholarships out. They got to meet the people they were giving them to. Again, that helps you stay accountable. But boy, Dr. Charles Robinson loves 28 years he's been up in Fayetteville. Hey man, Vince Ferrara, 99.1 The Sports Animal, the Vol Network. This is the Vol Network. Joins us now from Knoxville. Vince, I know you were doing some taping. You've been up probably since 4 o'clock my time this morning. You do a 3-hour show in the morning. Man, you're that Army commercial. Vince Ferrara does more before 9 a.m. than most people do in a week. Vince, you got the renewal of a Deep South classic. Tennessee and Alabama on the banks of the Tennessee River, Neyland Stadium, Shields Watkins Field, the press box in the sky, Mount Everest of press boxes. Let's talk about this matchup coming up Saturday. Alabama and Tennessee. Take it from here.
Yeah, great to be on with you guys again. Appreciate
Absolutely.
the opportunity. And how about Tennessee back-to-back weeks? Its two biggest rivals at home, Florida and Alabama. There's all kinds of hate in the air. There's
it really
in
is.
the air. There's hate in the air.
Yeah, it is. And Lauren Meadows enjoyed getting to meet you, who's on the Buddy Martin Show and Gator Bait Media. He said, "Who's your Tennessee guy?" I said, "Vince Ferrara, a Tampa native, by the way."
Yeah, it was great to visit with Lauren, and there was an empty seat next to me, so we were able to visit a little bit. So that was very cool. And as far as this game goes, two teams that are in similar spots in how they got here, right? Both of them have a blemish on their record. Alabama is crazy. Their route to get here, it's even more of an up and down than Tennessee. But you think about Alabama, what did they had Western Kentucky, they were dominant. USF, they looked blah, and then they went on to be dominant in the second half. Then Wisconsin, they dominated on the road. Georgia, they looked like the best team in the country in the first half, and then nearly coughed that up, and then found a way to get to the finish line against Georgia. Then they didn't play well at all, lose at Vanderbilt, and then last week were just kind of after a quick start, they were just sort of were up and down throughout the entire game against a below-average South Carolina team. So it's just hard to know what you're going to get from them week to week, whereas Tennessee, no one started hotter than Tennessee to start the year. But now the offense has struggled now 3 consecutive weeks once the competition has picked up. And you could argue how much the competition has picked up. It will definitely step up against the best team they have faced to this point. The last passing touchdown from Nico was the end of the first quarter at Oklahoma, which is nearly 3 full games ago. I mean, think about that for the way this team was putting up 60, 70 points a game, granted against lesser competition. The offense is really struggling in a lot of different areas, and I can get into that if you guys want. I won't bog you down with all of it.
That's what you're here for.
The bottom line is the bottom line is their defense has been fantastic, and it's really saved their backside. And they needed it against Florida, where they got a goal line stop, a forced fumble of Graham Mertz, and then 2 fourth down stops. And then Florida missing field goals. Florida getting a field goal at the end of the first half, and then having too many men on the field. 10-second runoff. Sorry, half is over. You don't get the 3 points when a game goes to overtime. So Billy Napier really heavily criticized for that game. And just like, and Dudley knows this, just like the Arkansas game, Florida lost his starting quarterback. Florida lost his starting running back. The only difference is Florida didn't lose his starting kicker. He was in there and missed a field goal in overtime. So even with all that, and similar to the Arkansas game, Florida could not get many points. Same thing, 3 points out of a ton of first half opportunities. Second straight game that Tennessee has not scored in the first half. From the number one offense in the country to can't score or even run the ball in the first half. Penalties, blocking on the offensive line, especially with the tackles. They've been able to run the ball a lot better in the second half, and Dylan Sampson saved their backside.
Yeah,
wow. He's the best running back in the league. 15 touchdowns, all three of them in that game. And so if it hadn't been for the defense and Dylan Sampson, this team would be far below expectations. But here they are. It doesn't matter. You're in the same spot. You beat Alabama. How you got there won't matter. The question is, will they be able to?
Dudley.
Yeah, one of the things that I've always been a proponent of is playing. You can have that first game where everybody's happy, everybody plays. Arkansas blew out UAPB, Tennessee rolled as well. Mm-hmm. I think once you get into the second and third games, you really need to go against a defense that will challenge you. And I think Tennessee was able to just flourish, and everything looked good. But obviously, Travis Williams and some others, threw some stuff out there that maybe threw a curveball at Nico. And he's having to learn as he goes. But I'm always a proponent of playing at least a tough team in the second and third game to get you ready to go into conference play.
Well, Dudley, they thought they were getting that in who was a top 25 team in NC State. But sometimes that doesn't play out. So
good point.
Now you could also maybe criticize them that, hey, there weren't any other challenges whatsoever with their others. Like they're playing an FCS team and then two of the worst group of five FBS teams like UTEP and Kent State. They are probably bottom 5 to bottom 10 among the group of five, and then an FCS in Chattanooga. So it's far from any sort of other test. Maybe that's where you could say, hey, maybe someone else with a pulse could maybe test you a little bit, find out a little bit more about where you're at. But it is what it is. And even Oklahoma is not what they're supposed to be. Arkansas is better than what some people projected, in Florida about what we thought. So it kind of evens out. Will they answer the bell is the question. Look, Alabama has had their fair share of issues also.
Well, you go back, there was a running back, 1979, Tennessee played Notre Dame in Knoxville. There was a guy named Hubert Simpson. Oh, he's not much of a practice player, but I think in that Notre Dame game he had 4 or 5 touchdowns. I think what happens is guys get kind of in their mind, well, I'm not going to start. I'm not going to play anyway, so I'll half-ass it in practice. Well, the greatest thing I've heard out of a coach's mouth recently was, I'm able to get my ones to practice as hard as my 2s and 3s. That's why my team is so good. That is so hard to do. It's underestimated. And I think, you look at, Jackson, the running back at Arkansas, Dudley, came in from Utah, Quindarian Jackson. And Dylan Sampson, 15 touchdowns. You've always got these guys. I mean, Travis Henry out of Frostproof, Florida in 98, when Jamal Lewis out of Southwest DeKalb there in Decatur, broke his kneecap in the Auburn game. Golly, man, everything changes when that guy behind you all of a sudden is the man. Dudley, getting back on this Arkansas LSU game, and I want to go back and forth with the two of y'all because when you got two guys this smart that have football IQs like y'all, 1 and 1 does equal 3. Dudley, how can Arkansas, let's say they get behind 14-0, like they got behind 14-3 against Tennessee, lost their quarterback midway in the third quarter, still found a path to victory.
And I think Arkansas has to be the front runner. If they get behind 14-0, I don't like your chances at all. And finding a way for them to win, it also involves the young man you just talked about, Quindarian Jackson. Number one, he's been one of the better running backs in the league. He's got a lot of touchdowns, put up a lot of yards. But amazingly, he hadn't gotten to play as much as they would have liked him to play because there's always a minor injury or, he gets his bell rung. Remember when back in high school when got a concussion. They called it a bell rung, and they said, get back out there. It's a situation where he had a lot more yards, if he had been able to do it. Now, that being said, Russell, the young 250-pound freshman who came alive there, against Tennessee, is really helped out. Arch has to be able to run the football. They have to keep the quarterback upright and healthy. And, I don't see a way that they fall down and have the offensive firepower to come back and win a game, even if it's at home. So I think they've got a front run similar to what they did against Tennessee. And yes, they fell down against Tennessee and came back. That was a strange game. I don't think you want to take the philosophy in there.
Yeah. Vince, 2 years ago in Knoxville, Alabama had won 15 in a row. Tennessee jumps on top of Alabama 28-10, and the game goes down to the last field goal, a knuckleball by Phil Necro's ghost. Tennessee gets the win 52-49. Mass eruption of just orange euphoria. We were there. Audrey and I were there. Good God. The torch guy was shaking out there by the stadium. There'll be 500,000 people there in the Vol Walk Saturday. It's going to be crazy. What if Tennessee jumps on top 21-0? What's different this time around?
Well, I think that will bode well for Tennessee if they're able to play from in front and kind of pin their ears back and try to get after Jalen Milroe. I think Alabama, though, would have a better chance to rally from that kind of depth than Tennessee would. That's one of my concerns for Tennessee is I think Alabama is more equipped the way they're playing offense and the way they have shown the ability to have explosive plays to rally back from big. And that will not be easy against this Tennessee defense. It is among the best in the country. Their yards per game allowed is 85 less than it was last year. A lot of their numbers are up from a year ago, even though their sacks aren't because everyone's getting rid of the football quickly. But here's my concern with Tennessee. First to finish your question, if Tennessee's up 21-0, obviously that's a good thing, but I wouldn't just say it's over. I think Alabama would have at least a puncher's chance to come back from that deficit. It would allow Tennessee to run the ball, not put too much on Nico. And I think what's happening with Nico is he is feeling the rush and he is not staying in the pocket. We have Heath Schuler on the Tennessee great quarterback on each week for a Monday morning quarterback segment that we call. And he says he actually puts as much of it on Nico as the offensive line. I kind of lean towards the offensive line, leading to Nico's issues, but he doesn't think Nico is staying in the pocket enough. He's not comfortable enough in the pocket and just relaxing in there. I think he's feeling some rush that maybe even at times when it's not there, certainly at times it is, and exiting the pocket too quickly at times. He has the ability to throw on the run. I think another part of it, too, is his receivers are not getting open enough for him. So he'll go through his first or second read and guys aren't open, and then he's trying to run to make a play. There's the protection issues, there's wide receiver issues. There's Nico kind of pressing a little bit. But I think he's going to be fine. They just got to fix those other things. Now, if it was the other way around, Rob, that's a concern for me because we haven't seen be able to show explosive plays. Their explosive plays are way down. Brew McCoy played 57 snaps last week, was targeted 0 times. He had one run on a sweep for 6 yards. And they've been banged up at that wide receiver position with Thornton and Squirrel White. So they had to go deeper into their wide receiving core. And then plus, if you're down 21-0, then you're not going to run the ball as much. That's been the most reliable part of their offense. So
it is.
Alabama, and then one other thing too, with Jalen Milroe, I think that Tim Banks against running quarterbacks, Tennessee's defensive coordinator, he's run more zone against those running quarterbacks because, as you guys know, if you're running man, you have your back turned to the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're susceptible to him running on you. And who's better at that than Jalen Milroe?
Yeah.
Well, Tennessee has been leaky at times in the pass game, especially in the middle when they play some zone. And if Tim Banks does not want to give up the quarterback runs and he plays a lot of zone, then I think Alabama might be able to do more than what Tennessee stats would tell you they could. And so that's a concern for me in that area. Can they do a little bit of both and just mix it up to where he's out of balance and you're not always playing zone, but he thinks you are, and then you can keep him contained in the pocket or find other ways to disrupt them. So that Alabama has some avenues to try to have some success against Tennessee in this game, but certainly Tennessee's doing some things really well also.
You know what I think happens, guys, when a quarterback, he sees his first read, but he doesn't look at his second or third? It's like when we're taking a multiple choice test. You get stumped by a question and you just start, and then you screw up the next two or three.
I go directly to all of the above.
That's right. But Dudley, that game plan that Travis Williams, and I throw in Marcus Woodson, the secondary coach, because he is so damn good at development as well as recruiting and coaching. But the game plan that Tennessee had against Arkansas had against Tennessee, it's confusing. And Ellis Johnson, defensive coordinator who's been around a while, he's on the show Mondays with us. He said Tennessee's offense is predicated on the deep ball because then that opens up everything else. So Brett, kind of talk about what you saw, Dudley, in that game. And, Nussmeier will try to do the same thing with they got some, Lacey and some pretty good LSU always has receivers.
First thing I want to say is before I get into that issue is Kalen DeBoer. He's a very good coach. Obviously, he's been a winner, where he's been at and all that stuff. But man, is this ever the case of you don't want to be the man who follows the man? You want to be the man who follows the man that follows the man.
That's right.
I mean, if he loses this weekend, they're going to be on him so much.
Yes. They're so understanding. That's course.
Yeah. And it's just because of continued excellence. And, Coach Saban sits there every Saturday morning and, he's not gone away. He's part of the deal, and on the morning show on Saturday. But, I look at this situation with Arkansas and Tennessee, similar to what, as you said, with Arkansas and LSU. Old coaches used to say, we need to make them play left-handed. And, they weren't truly playing left-handed, but they wanted what they had planned in their script when they come out early.
Yep.
You've got to disrupt that. And your script has got to be in a situation where you are able to at least confuse them.
Yeah.
And I think that's certainly what he did early against Tennessee. Tennessee was able to get it going after halftime for sure. But still, there were a lot of issues, with Tennessee's offense in that game. I think LSU, you've got to confuse them as well. That's what they did against Tennessee is on film now. You get a chance to just as Travis Williams scouted Tennessee, then they've gotten a chance to scout him against them. I'm sure it's going to be a close game. It seemingly always is. I do think that these guys are feeling pretty good about themselves up here, and they are getting the injury report, this new injury report thing they have on Thursday. I'm sure
availability report.
Yeah, the availability. I'm sure we'll list Taylor Green as questionable. I mean, I'm sure he's going to play, but I'm sure it'll list him as questionable. These games these coaches play, but Arkansas is probably going to be in a better situation health-wise than they were against Tennessee. That's going to help a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
I still picked LSU this weekend because, if you win 4 in a row, including 2 in a row up here, I'm going to take you till you lose. But it should be a great game, as most of those have. They've had weird things happen in the game, so I'm expecting something weird up here, again. But I just, LSU has been a better program over these last few years, and so you go with who's won.
And real quick, Dudley, let me build on your point and what you're saying about what Travis Williams and Arkansas did against Tennessee. What they did that was genius, two things. One, were they kept Tennessee from getting those explosive plays, because that's what the offense is built up. Physical run, explosive big plays. The explosive big plays have not happened. So Arkansas was able to keep Tennessee from getting over the top of them. Part of why they did that is they muddied the waters on the box count for Nico Iamaleava. And because of their corners and their linebackers and cheating in, they didn't give a clear picture for Nico on how many guys were in the box. And Tennessee is very much by the book, especially for a young quarterback. Light box you run, loaded box you throw. And so when Nico would think, oh, this is a 5-man box, Arkansas was crashing in late, and suddenly you're really defending the run and in your gaps. And then at times where he thought it was a loaded box, you're backing out with speedy, athletic defenders, and now you're back in coverage, and there's nowhere to go with the football. And so that's a big part of what bogged Nico down. Oklahoma was doing a little bit of that. I think that's what Sam Pittman was talking about in taking the game plan from Brent Venables. And then Florida tried to do that to a certain degree as well. So brilliant by Arkansas to do that. And then, Tennessee just has to have the answer. And to your game, Dudley, I think that might be a little bit more difficult to do with Garrett Nussmeier, who's a much more veteran quarterback.
Right. I totally agree. The box, you talk about that. The one area that I think was kind of underrated where Arkansas got better at, because pretty much all their linebackers walked out the door. But the ones that they got during the transfer portal were very versatile. They weren't the 6'3", 250 guys. They were guys that could make plays in the run game. They're also guys that could cover wide receivers, and that has been, and tight ends, and that's been, I think a benefit to them. And I think kind of got overlooked a little bit in that sometimes you can take advantage of matchups on offense, and sometimes you can take advantage of them on defense. You can set that tone.
Yeah, you look at the coaches. Travis Williams, he's 6'1", 205 when he played at Auburn. He had a teammate, Antarius Williams. He was about 5'11", 207 out of Columbus, Georgia. Hardaway or maybe Baker. But his coach, Gene Chizik, on defense, when he first got there, it was John Lovett. And then he had Gene Chizik for 3 years, and then David Gibbs in 2005. His father, Alex, was a legendary offensive line coach with the Broncos and a bunch of places. He's very smart. He's also, Kevin Steele taught him a lot. Guys, this is an awesome conversation. And as we're building this network, you can't do it without great team. The knowledge that y'all both have, it's off the charts. I love breaking these games down. So before we go, I want to say something real quick. Stay with us about a new sponsor that just joined us yesterday, Landers Ford in Collierville, the #1 Ford dealership in the Mid-South. They're open Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Service department opens 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. right there at the corner of Poplar and Houston Levee. Landers Ford, they are committed to the Mid-South, and they can deliver anywhere. They can deliver Ford cars, trucks, and SUVs wherever you live. Go to the LandersFordCollierville.com website. When you call out there, talk to our man, the general manager, Brad Bellamy. Tell him, hey, I heard about you on Sidelines. I'm looking to get a car, truck, SUV, or a pre-owned one, whatever it is. Start with him. He is the quarterback. Landers Ford, just really, really proud. They've got their name on 6 stadiums just here in the Memphis Mid-South area. Love people that invest in the communities. Guys, as we part today, we'll be back on tomorrow. I'm going to start with Vince. Tell them how they can follow your awesome show up there, and also how much fun is this college football season on a 1 to 5? 1 being, this is like watching asphalt dry. 5 being, I can't get enough of it.
Definitely 5 to answer your question.
Okay.
And when your team is the team you cover is competitive and competing is still in with the possibility of a college football playoff, it certainly adds to it. And then a lot of teams are in contention, so that's fun. I want to say one quick thing. Keenan Peely out for the year, devastating the 26-year-old. 7 seasons in college, 43 games played, 31 starts. He lost all the last season going down in the opener last year, was a leading tackler, maybe on his way to first team all SEC. Now you get your Mike linebacker gone for the year with an ACL injury. Just really difficult and a tough blow for them going into a game where you need a guy to spot Jalen Milroe.
Yeah.
So always fun to be on with you guys. You can follow me on all the socials, Vince Sports, VINCE Sports. And then go anywhere you get your podcast, subscribe to Sports Talk, one word. And that's a show John Wilkerson and I do each weekday morning, 6 to 9. And then Vol Network interviews and do a couple TV shows and high school football, which is so much fun doing that with a number of guys. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So follow me on the socials, and you guys are the best. I appreciate you.
Hey, well, I'm going to tell you what we ought to do. Dudley does the, high school football in Arkansas, all 200. He's trying to get to all 200 schools. We ought to get the two of y'all together and do a podcast on that, because without high school football, you ain't got Jack. And if you don't have Jack, you don't have college football. So love the time. Fearless Fridays is what Dudley calls it. But Dudley, tag out, and we'll let everybody go and just say, thanks for watching. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Act like it, folks, and celebrate. And tell your friends about our show.
Yeah, look forward to this weekend. Obviously, hogville.net. Cover all 19 sports. Arkansas 1, 2, 3 from Oklahoma State in baseball. Exhibition baseball this past weekend, so they're excited about that, and they're excited about LSU coming in. And as you said, Fearless Friday is what I do, the high school stuff. Love it. Just love it.
Hey, we all do, man. Look, and again, all of our sponsors, you can find them sidelines.live. We're going to have Dudley's going to rebuild our website. We're going to make it better than it's ever been. You can't get a better executive producer than Brendan Martin down in Ocala, Florida. And do what you can, whether it's Samaritan's Purse, a number of organizations to help people that have been affected by these hurricanes in western North Carolina, East Tennessee, North Georgia, South Carolina, Georgia, South Georgia, Florida. It's a big deal. Americans helping Americans. There's nothing better other than sitting on the front porch with people like Dudley Dawson, Jim McClellan, and Maury Gaston, and my wife Audrey talking about college football, man. God bless you. See you in the morning.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shoppe health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.